kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 13 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. Hi, Dad.
G'day, mate.
How's it going?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You had a good week?
Yeah. Always busy, keeping out of trouble. How about
My
you?
children are good.
Yeah, they are. They are very well. Yeah. So last week we talked about having a little bit of fun in amongst all of the serious stuff. But this week, I mean, the fun continues in many ways. I think you had plenty of fun when you were at the regiment, but this is when the whips start cracking as things get ready to go. So yeah, how did it feel to be on that final leg of the train on your way into Perth, knowing that you were about to pick up your Sandy Beret and you're actually part of that system now?
Would have been scary without GD Smith there.
Yeah.
Um, I reckon we'd only last a week. That'd be it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Was there ever a threat? Because he says that in the chapter, you're only last a week. Was there ever a threat of that you were going to
No,
have
not
passed
really.
through all of the selection course? You weren't going to get thrown out at that point,
You need as many blokes as I could get for Vietnam.
right?
So we're all designated to go to 3 Squadron, which was the next squadron after the next squadron. There were 18 months' time, which suited me because I could learn all the things I needed to learn in that time.
Yeah.
Um, autodidacting is one thing, but learning a totally new skill like weapons and
Right.
Morse code and all the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah. And the signaling, we'll hear more about that in
No,
in the next couple
yeah,
of chapters. But
no comms, Malone. Oh,
yeah,
no, very cool.
oh yeah, it's lots of fun.
But
So
all my mates say those SIGs, fantastic.
yeah, well, let's get into the chapters so we can read a little bit about the regiment. So today we're going to be reading chapter 10 of Two Ranks on the Road: 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, entitled "The Regiment," covers pages 79 to 86 in the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of that chapter. As we read the body of the text we read by author Mick Malone, whenever we come across a footnote, we will pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I will read the footnotes. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 10, The Regiment, 1967-68. What the future held. Coming down through Northam, we knew we were around 60 miles from Perth. We packed up our clobber and prepared for our arrival at East Perth railway station. Again, there was a 3-ton truck there to pick us up. The truck dropped us off at 3 Squadron, where we were met by the SSM, Mick Wright. The squadron headquarters was still in the old wooden building and to the north of the barracks. The new barracks were not completed as we had hoped. We were again in East Block and eating in the old South Mess. Changed out of our battle dress, which was starting to pong at this stage, a set of clean greens after a quick shower, went down a treat. By that time, a large corporal was walking down the corridor, yelling instructions. We would have paraded in PT gear at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Down to dinner in the mess, then up to the boozer. Good to see a lot of the other blokes there, legendary blokes we'd heard about, to sink a few beers and then off to the rack. There'd be plenty of time to get to know the legends. The run next day was conducted by a savage little PTI who really gave it to us. I presume he was under instructions from Mick Wright, and this certainly got us refocused very quickly. We ran in green trousers, no shirt, boots and gaiters, and since we had yet to be issued GP boots, the old ABU boots were it. We ran out the front gate, up past Cottesloe Golf Club, along West Coast Highway and headed towards Perry Lakes Stadium, scene of the 1962 Commonwealth Games. Before we got there, we ran up Heartbreak Hill, a sand dune at the edge of Bowl Park. Talk about a gutbuster, and back down again. And then sure enough, we had to do it again, cruel bastards. Then it was back to camp with boots full of sand. The gators were supposed to keep the sand out. It didn't work. Bubbles Merton, um, a giant of a man, would look at us young Turks with a wry grin as if he was the PTI. He could handle these runs, that's for sure. We had two Bubbles in the squadron. Bubbles Gibson was the other one, thus named because they carried a bit of weight. It was a good-natured nickname taken in a calm light. Both Bubbles attended our med-aid course at Healesville in late '68. By then, both either decided to take discharge or were posting elsewhere. A pity because they were both good soldiers and had toured with 3 Squadron on the first tour. Sweat banished by a hot shower, fresh greens and boots, breakfast, and then prayed to march down to 3 Squadron headquarters to find out what the future held. Major John Murphy, MC, was still the OC with Captain Anatoly Danilenko, 2IC.
Footnote: Danilenko was killed in action with the AATTV on ANZAC Day, 1968.
Murphy had led 3 Squadron in Vietnam the previous year, and many of those who joined on parade were with him in Vietnam. The OC welcomed us all, especially us newbies.
Footnote: The regiment kept a book on all of us, where they recorded their impressions of us on the Carter. The Red Book was off limits to us soldiers, but years later, when I was 2IC of the training squadron, I was able to get the Red Book out of the safe. Under my name, the comments were all positive. A keen young soldier. There were hundreds of names in the book, each with a single sentence or even a single word comment. Some good, some not so good. When Wally Marshall, MM, gives you the note that you're not very good at navigating, you're motivated to get better.
3 Squadron consisted of 3 Sabre troops, I Troop, J Troop, and L Troop. On their recent deployment, it was K Troop and I Troop was left at home.
Footnote: On 3 Squadron's first tour, K Troop were deployed and L Troop stayed behind. For 3 Squadron's second tour in 1969, L Troop were deployed and K Troop stayed behind. At that time, I was too far down the food chain to understand why.
He called the roll and told us what troop we'd be in. And plenty of shuffling around till we were lined up with I Troop on the far left, J Troop in the middle, and my troop L Troop on the right. Off to the right of L Troop was the Q staff, drivers and clerks. The OC introduced the new troop commanders and troop sergeants. Ours was Lieutenant Chris Roberts, newly graduated from Duntroon.
Footnote: Roberts was posted out of the unit on RTA. He came back for 2 further postings, one as OC 1 Squadron Major and again as CO Lieutenant Colonel. He was promoted Colonel and headed up DSAF, or Directorate of Special Action Forces, in Army Office Canberra, and was later promoted Brigadier. When he retired from the ADF, he went into business in Canberra.
While our troop sergeant was Ray Woofer Neal.
Footnote: Woofer was a Borneo 1 Squadron and 2 tour Vietnam veteran. On RTA, he stayed on in the unit and ended up as a WO2 in water ops. He has since died. RIP.
Other sergeants in L Troop were Clem Dwyer.
Footnote: Clem was a Borneo 1 Squadron and 2 tour of Vietnam 3 Squadron veteran, stayed on in the unit and was instrumental in teaching of leadership to us young Turks on patrol commander courses. He has since died. A top soldier and on my list of one of the 10 best. RIP.
John Twang Burley. and Bill Harris. Three squadron officers and senior NCOs included Des Kennedy, MM, Chris Jennison, Tom Hogg, John Robinson, and Bruce English, while some of the corporals were also Vietnam vets like Bags of Styles and Freddie Roberts. We're going to need all these experienced blokes to help us learn the ropes before we deployed in 18 months. The new barracks were completed around this time, and the handover commenced. There were 5 squadron buildings, each with accompanying barrack accommodation. A new RHQ was positioned near the front gate, and the old one, up near the boozer, demolished. There was a new gym and a swimming pool. The old gym theatre was to be demolished. New messes were built, and the old ones demolished. The old officers' mess became the education centre for a while uh, before being demolished. The old Q store was demolished, and a new base squadron complex was built, including transport yard on the southern side of the barracks. 5 camp hospital was also bulldozed, and the old nurses' house was eventually gifted to the SAS Association WA branch, with whom it remains to this day. All in all, Campbell Barracks has had a serious makeover. We moved into the new lines late in 1967, before annual leave. But before that, we paraded outside 3 squadron and marched up to the mess, main Q store, to draw our Sandy Berets. They could have presented them to us, but I'd never experienced a prouder moment. We grew in stature with the beret in place, and the beaming smiles told the story. We'd try and drink the boozer dry that night. Of the 26 who started our quota, we were down to 23, having lost the artillery cove sacked in Collie. Bilborough back squatted due to medical problems, and one other loss before we were even started. Of the 23, there were about 6 SIGs who went off to 152 SIG Squadron, and 4 Ordnance Wallers who went to Base Squadron to continue to stack blankets and man orderly rooms. In addition, Bart Maverick and Stan Bilborough both transferred to infantry around this time, which left around 13 of us to take on the courses required for SAS Trooper Grade 2, which is ECN 3532. Completing the Carter and Para course qualifies as SAS Troopers Grade 1, ECN 3531. But for the big quid of 86 cents a day extra, we needed to qualify on the signals, medical, patrol, and assault pioneers demolition courses to get this bonus and make us war ready. There was a pinboard in the troop office with all our names on it and on it in patrols. When we completed the course, we stuck a particular coloured pin in the board, which became a game after a while. The older blokes who were on the first tour were generally patrol 2ICs, and their names were littered with pins. The next course on the agenda was the Regimental Signals course run by 152 Signal Squadron, an integral part of the regiment. The new MI block,
Footnote, military instruction block.
was the venue, and it was here I was introduced to the role I would play for the next couple of years, Patrol SIG. I struggled with Morse code, as did everyone, but eventually it clicked for me. Our instructor, Barry Smith, would teach Morse code to a rock, and he got it through my thick skull eventually. Antenna theory and codes, OTLP, were also difficult subjects for me, but one I mastered eventually. All we needed was time, field time, which we would get in spades. Initially we used the 510 radio, which was a weird 2-pack radio worn on the belt, where ammo pouches usually were. The best thing about the 510 key was it was the best Morse key in captivity and far easier to use than others. When we were finally introduced to the little ANPRC 64 set, The SIGs adapted 510 keys for use on the 64, and we loved them for it. The daily routine of the troop was one of the hurry up and wait. We paraded daily outside the squadron while the SSM gave us the rounds of the kitchen for various misdemeanours, such as the state of the barracks and our dress. Mick Wright had moved on by this time, and Des Kennedy, MM, had taken over. Whilst he was a good man, I think he had begun to lose his marbles by this stage. For example, if you parked incorrectly in the car park, Des would let your tyres down. You never understand that with flat tyres, the car wasn't going anywhere. Once the SSM was done, we broke off into troop gaggles and for the troop sergeant to have his turn. So with two courses under the belt on the way to the grade 2 level, we set about enjoying our new unit. We had some stars in the squadron, such as Johnny Juvie Matten, who had distinguished himself in carrying a badly wounded Russell Copeman out of the bush on 3 Squadron's first tour. In fact, he ran 1,500 metres with Russell on his back, over his back, and then got comms and got the patrol out. The patrol commander had lost it by this stage and didn't do his job, and was subsequently moved on. Juvie was in I Troop, and so I never got to work with him for many years. More's the pity. Freddie Roberts was another first tour veteran who was our age, but called us young gays.
Footnote: the word gay was not quite widely claimed by the LGBT community at this stage. I don't think so, anyway.
Other experienced hands were Anthony Leon Blackie Reed, Chris Jennison, Johnny Jewell, John Robinson, Clem Dwyer, Bill Harris, Bubbles Merton, Bubbles Gibson, and Woofer Neal. These were still sergeants or corporals. They were all sergeants or corporals, many of them patrol commanders. We celebrated the regiment's 10th birthday on September the 4th, 1967. A parade was held in the old gym where the CO, Len Isles, and the 2OC, Burst Cassidy, gave speeches and were exhorted us onward and upward. They then made the fatal mistake of bringing out trays of meat pies for lunch. We ate at least two, and then some lout threw one at Bert Cassidy, and it was on. It was a good place to get out of, I can tell you. Tomorrow there would be repercussions, we knew, but now we were heading to Fremantle. Anyone who had a car loaded up and away we went, the RV being the Orient Hotel. This was the place to see the boys let their hair down. And they did just that. Coal schooners were being chugged in record time, and it wasn't long before most of us were down. There were 3 sheets to the wind. The front bar of the Orient was certainly our territory, and no civilian dared come in there. Us newbies were warmly welcomed into the 3 Squadron group by the older, more experienced blokes, like Ned Kelly, Juvie Matten, Billy Nagel, Bags of Styles, and others. One of the more seasoned veterans had the wobbly boots on pretty early and decided he'd give the young bloke some serious cheek. He was promptly put on his arse for his trouble. The bar never missed a beat as he was hauled out. My mates Joe Rice and Possum Bramley were in fine form. Joe in particular was a thirsty cove, chain smoking and always laughing. Possum was a member of 1526 Squadron, and we never saw very much of him or Curly Clark those days. They were too busy burning the secrets of signals or whatever. Before long, someone said, "I'm heading back to the barracks. Anyone want a lift?" I was out the door in a flash and piled into his car. I think there were 10 of us in the car for the trip back. We were still in Vietnam mode, of course, and had been issued our new GP boots. These were the bee's knees of combat boots at the time, as they had steel plate in the sole to defend against pansy stakes. They were made by Dunlop and were the most comfortable boots I ever wore till I discovered Doc Martens. We would be preparing to deploy in around 18 months, and boots had to be worn in rapidly. One of the most intense activities we were introduced to shortly after the Carter was roping and rappelling. Initially, we were introduced to the old scaffolding apparatus in the sandhills at Swanbourne, which had had its day and was decidedly unsafe. None of us liked it at all, but then we were introduced to Boyer Quarry in the Perth Hills. This was an amazing training facility with various rock faces ideal for the assortment of roping methods. The main face was used for Geneva, where the manila rope was used without any mechanical devices. We wore large baggy leather shorts, not lederhosen, to protect our fundamentals when doing Geneva. The quarry was also ideal for rappelling um, and carabiner rundowns, where the Swiss seat of linen star rope would be secured around the hips and attached to the carabiner in the front. Rappelling entailed going down backwards, which initially brought on the 5 cent, 10 cent reaction.
Footnote: when your ass goes from the size of a 5 cent piece to a 10 cent piece and back again as you initially panic.
I remember it well. The manila rope was looped through the carabiner and fed through by the right hand. Descent was pretty slow to begin with, but sped up as we got more into it. The Mugglears amongst us had a field day. I did pretty well at this new skill and went on to do a roping instructor's course. I soon realised that this wasn't my bag. I would look for some other area to specialise in. Later on, we also rappelled from large buildings in Perth City, from helicopters onto ships and oil rigs. Later on, we also employed fast ropes in order to get onto a ship or a building as quickly as possible. October and November saw the squadron involved in small scrub bashing exercises and range practices. Run in boots and greens were daily occurrences, as were workouts in the gym. The obstacle course down the back behind the new messes was a daily torture, but it got us and kept us fit. By this time, the next Carter was done, and those who got through joined us before they could do their para course in the new year. It was great to see my old mate Bilbra join us after his travails on our Carter. He was posted to L Troop with us, and he was still a very wild man, full of piss and bad manners. A few of us, a few off this Carter were Mac McCormack, Bob Broadhurst, Bill Irwin, John Pitter Patter Petrie, Teddy Rusker, Dave Elliott, John Dodd, Paul Callaghan, and Dennis Brown.
Footnote: Dennis stayed on in the unit after Vietnam and went into the mountaineering field. He was killed on the climbing course when he fell off a cliff. R.I.P.
Kerry Campbell,
Footnote: Kerry left the unit on RTA. I'm unsure what fields he pursued in civil life.
Burma Miller,
Footnote: Burma stayed in the regiment until his untimely death on a demolition course in 1976. He was a good soldier. R.I.P.
yeah. Trevor McKenzie, Stretch McCrone, Nick McKelvey, and others. The squadron, the lights of Tom Hogg, on the right page.
No. Page 85.
At the time, there were lots of old and bold missing from the squadron. The likes of Tom Hogg, Max Aitken, John Burling, um, Jock Thorburn, Mick Wright, Peter Tobrink, Bubbles Merton, Stan Lavery, Bubbles Gibson, Ron Gammy, John Coleman, Bruce English, Danny Wright, Blue Corsten, Jim McFadgen, and others had all moved on or taken discharge. We were expecting these characters to be our leaders on the coming years, but it was not to be. The leadership of the squadron was now Reg Beasley, OC.
Footnote: The Beast had served in the original 1 SAS company in the late 50s. He retired as a brigadier. His son Jono followed him as CO and also retired as a brigadier.
Ross Bishop, 2IC, came from 1526. Des Kennedy, MM, he was the SSM. Nick Howlett, Troop Commander, I Troop. Terry Nolan, J Troop. Chris Roberts, L Troop. Senior NCOs, Troop Sergeants were John Robinson, I Troop. ELA Pancho Tonner, MM, J Troop. And Ray Wolford Neal, L Troop. There were still a few good ones, thankfully. Pancho Kirkez, Freddie Roberts, Bags of Styles, Ned Kelly, Blue Parrington, Wolford Neal, Arch Foxley, Pancho Tonner, Clem Dwyer, Johnny Jewell were all stepping up as experienced hands, most having served in Borneo and Vietnam, while others would be with us on our second tour. I rate some of these blokes as the best I ever served with, a credit to the ethos and success of SASR. It was my privilege to have served with them. The Signal Squadron also provided some of the top soldiers, such as Barry Muckastanden, John Father Jackson, Chris Pennington, Michael Gino Jansen, Johnny Hill, John Gob Mounsey, and my old mate Craig Possum Bramley, to name a few. These were the blokes who ran the communications for the squadron, without whom we would have been up Shit's Creek later on. The photographs on that page.
Yeah, we'll talk
Um,
about that later.
Mick Malone, Bill Stanley Wilbur, and Bill Nagel. So that's the end of the chapter.
And that was chapter 10 from Two Ranks in the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, as read by the author. So lots of stuff in that chapter. A lot of personalities that we'll be seeing a lot more of in the next few chapters, and a lot of people whose names I grew up with. A lot of people who were fairly
Legends,
formative.
absolute legends.
Yeah, a lot of legends, a lot of rat bags.
Oh, rat bags.
So yeah, hearing all those names, all those formative figures, those blokes who helped sort of form you, Gez Kennedy and Clem Dwyer and people like that, sort of really interesting seeing them come into the story and where they started off with you.
Yeah, well, DK was the one that kept the Ravelli going down at Collie with
Yeah,
his TNT.
that's right. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. One of the things you talk about right off the bat, and it's interesting that they threw it at you right as soon as you started, was Heartbreak Hill. So every time I'm back in Perth and drive past Perry Lakes, I always look to the right as I'm coming towards Mount Clemon and look up Heartbreak Hill. So if you're ever coming down that way in Perth, take a look at Bold Hill there.
Next time you're over here, we'll stop there and you can run up it.
Oh
And
yeah, run up and down a few times, see what I
I
reckon.
can supervise.
Well, it's still pretty woolly and rough up there.
Yeah.
And you've talked a lot about that Heartbreak Hill run, but you'd run up it and your boots would fill up with sand.
It was a killer, mate, a killer.
Were
Anyway,
there?
that was fun introduction to the regiment.
Yeah, yeah.
Finding out all these blokes who were stars of the show back in the day, Borneo and Vietnam. It was on for young and old.
So one thing that comes up a lot in this chapter is are all the nicknames that that fly around. Everyone seems to have a nickname. It seems like there's something. Can you talk a little bit about some of these nicknames? You've got some beauties in there.
Later on, I'm doing a book called Wild Men of the SAS, and most of the nicknames will be in there,
Yeah.
like anagram.
Whose whose nickname is Anagram?
One of the officers, he was a drongo, and they just called him anagram, which is drongo for anagram is drongo for drongo.
Right. So his name was an anagram for Drongo? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's a absolute ripper names. I sat in a cafe once writing down all Blue Ryan's bloody nicknames. He nicknamed just about everyone. Um, Minus seven echo cubed.
Why?
Um,
Why?
He had to be there. He had to be there. But oh, Blue, he's a cruel man.
But it's all done in good spirits.
Oh, yeah.
People weren't being nicknamed named things they weren't happy with.
No, that's right.
Yeah, although some listeners who followed your career might be surprised that there's at no point in Two Ranks on the Road is the nickname Pies ever mentioned.
No, no, it came on later.
Yeah, well, but but you never really embraced it. Although there are a lot of blokes who still know you as Pies.
I was never happy with it.
But
I
tell us
never,
how you got the nickname of Pies.
oh, we had a pie eating contest, boozer, and I ate 13.
And then
And
they
then
then
we had a speed, then we had a speed eating contest.
uh,
And they nuked the bloody the pies in the microwave.
so
I burnt my lips. Len Smith shoved all this pie in his mouth, and he had great skin hanging off his face. Oh my God! So he won. I didn't. What the, the quantity eating.
But we used to have a trophy in the house, which was they'd taken a Bovel's pie and they'd lacquered it and stuck it on a
What happened
plaque.
to that?
It
What happened
fe
to that?
I think it fell into pieces. I think the pie finally dissolved. So yeah, some might be surprised that there's no mention of pies in the book, but it was never really something you embraced. Although a lot of these other blokes had nicknames that stuck with them forever. Usually, blokes whose nicknames were Blue were usually known as Blue forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Blue Ryan and Blue Burridge and blokes like that.
They're all bully headed or white haired these days, those blokes.
Yeah, yeah, and usually that if they're blue, they were redheaded. Isn't generally the way that went.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Anywho,
yeah. So lots of different things, and the Campbell Barracks, like we've talked about already, but the fact that it's a very different place now to how it was then, and you came back hoping that they would have built you some beautiful new barracks, and then they hadn't got around to it yet, so you were back in the old ones.
yeah, yeah.
When did they get around to
Oh,
making?
67, 68. We moved into them in 68.
Right. Okay. So you got a chance to.
But it was the program was done. They finished that first, of course,
Hmm.
much to our chagrin. We hoped to stay under a bloody 50 million tons of sand,
Right.
but didn't. And some CEOs used to love, like Mike Jeffrey later on used to love us all strutting around in full kit,
Yeah.
full parade ground gear. Not that we ever liked it, of course,
Yeah. But
but
yeah,
that was it. Parade grounds is parade grounds.
it's a very modern place now, but yeah, back then, I mean, you saw it grow from nothing to
They don't do parades at all these days, of course.
right. Yes.
Everyone's too busy.
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of busy, that the idea of those pin boards is a fun one. Did that carry on? Yeah, people putting pins.
It became a bit of a bit like two squadrons bloody kill board in Vietnam. They used to put all their kills on a board,
Right.
the tractor and this ambush and that, and they end up when we got there, Regiment they said get rid of that board, and
Right.
it got chucked out. So we never kept a tally of. We had a private tally,
Yeah.
but nothing like two squadron. Two squadron really got stuck into them.
Mm.
They killed about 18 on the tractor job. Um, Adrian Blacker was on that one,
Yeah. Yeah.
led by fearless Frank Cashmore.
Hmm. Yeah.
But they dug trenches in the road and buried explosives and sat back and watched the tractor come down the road with a trailer full of bags of rice and Viet Cong soldiers. Kawumpa, up she went.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's described in some detail in the later
Yeah,
chapters once we get there. So yeah,
yeah.
but those pin boards were keeping track. But if it becomes too competitive or if it becomes sort of a
Oh,
way of
folks used to get a handful of pins and stick it in other people's things.
right,
just being big idiots, you know.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
You
No.
never knew. You had to really check the color code to make sure that you, you hadn't done a gourmet cooking course or something.
But there are a lot of courses you had to take. I mean, you talk about the roping and rappelling, but probably more formative for you is your Morse code, of having to figure out Morse code along the way.
That just came to me one day. That's all. It was pretty difficult.
Do you still have it?
Uh,
Do you still remember it?
Sort of. I know
Bits
what
and pieces.
data did data stands for.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. That's right. Yeah.
I know.
Um,
No, it'd take me a little while, probably half an hour to get back on track. But um,
but it's
some of
amazing.
those
I
some
mean,
of
it's
those blokes sending and receiving 25 words a minute, which is speed.
yeah,
I,
and then the idea of
I,
doing it in combat or when you're
yeah,
being
I
shot
was
at.
8 to 10 words a minute man.
Right.
And when the bullets are flying, I'm not quite sure whether I sent anything legible.
Well, you had to send your location so you could get
Yeah,
picked up.
yeah. What's that? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing you talk about in this chapter, which is really important, and I think it comes up maybe again, is John Madden's action, with um, which you're still dirty about to this day.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, Juvie was quite an extraordinary soldier, and he'd probably rate him as the best soldier I ever worked with later on. But they were crossing a track, and Russell Copeman gets shot by a VC who saw them crossing the track and waited and just went bongs and shot Russell in the guts, I think it was. And down he went. Juvie was the medic, which is one in front of Russell. So the five-man patrol had two IC, medic, SIG, patrol commander, four scout. So Juvie's rushed back, grabbed him and his gear on his shoulders, after I think he'd sprayed the area, and rushed down through the patrol and led the patrol out. 1,500 metres he ran, and the patrol commander had lost it. He couldn't make a decision about anything. So Juvie just took over and got comms. He was a speed comms man. Got comms and got them all out basically. And the OC decided he wasn't going to put Juvie in for anything, basically to protect the patrol commander,
Hmm.
who they sacked later and sent him off to a battalion or something. So, but there's a furphy around at the moment that Juvie could be getting some sort of gong, whether it's an MID or Medal of Gallantry or something.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, as long as I've remembered this story, it's always been that injustice that he wasn't put in for this,
Oh, absolute injustice.
and he saved Russell's life, but then he later died in back
He
in
died
Australia,
6 months later.
died of the wounds. Yeah, but still, the fact that he did that is pretty, and he was always such a massive figure from my childhood. Um,
Oh,
he was, I mean, and we I saw just this last Anzac Day, I was back in Australia, and we saw him at the dawn service, sat with him at the dawn service. He and Eileen have always been
he led a
central figures
parade.
and led the parade. That's right. Yeah, we didn't march. We usually would
No.
march, but we didn't march this year. But
Ah,
yeah, some really incredible people who pop up in these chapters, and so we're going to see more of them as we go. So we've also got some great photos. We haven't had many photos in the previous chapters, but this chapter here we have on page 82. We have newly minted SAS soldier Mick Malone standing there, looking looking pretty suave with his M60 machine gun. We can see there and holding it up to the camera for those watching on YouTube. If you're reading along, you can see that there. So, are you playing your coolest role?
look how skinny I was.
And no mustache. When did the mustache show up?
It's Vietnam, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these early photos of you without a without a mustache, but you've got that Sandy Beret on, so you've got certainly got
Yeah, it's brand new.
yeah,
Still
holding
by
a
the shape of it.
yeah, that's it. So that's outside Free Squadron headquarters in Swanbourne, and then and then on page 86 we have a fairly legendary photo of Mick Malone on the drink with Stanley Bilborough and Bill Nagel, a couple of big names from your time. So
Yeah,
you were at the Zanzibar nightclub in 1967.
Stanley Hook. And Bill Nagel made a name for himself with that book, The Angry Shot.
Yeah, yeah, led the way. But yeah, it's a good photo. It's sort of really, and all of you looking like the Blues Brothers there in your
Yeah,
jackets and ties.
little skinny ties. We all
Yeah,
wore ties over at night.
it's a beauty. So yeah, it's some good photos, and we'll see more photos as we go forward. We will get to more of those next week, but that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. So join us next week for the next installment in our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get to the next chapter of the book entitled Med Aid Course. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for gallantly joining me on this journey.
Bye con Dios, boyo.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.